Have the Raiders been planning on moving on from Derek Carr all along? And is Josh McDaniels, who Mark Davis recently said is doing a fantastic job, in on it? And are the Raiders, despite trading for Davante Adams earlier this year, intentionally tanking? Josh McDaniels, who was in line to take over for Bill Belichick, would have never left New England unless he had a golden opportunity to do whatever he wants. And now we know that him and his best friend slash general manager have a 4-year contract in Las Vegas. But Josh McDaniels could not do what he did in Denver the last time he was a head coach, which was immediately trade away their starting QB after pissing him off because he was trying to swap him for Matt Castle. But every head coach who gets a long-term deal likes to remake the team in their image. John Gruden's team, led by Rich Bisaccia and Derek Carr, won over the hearts of Raider Nation by making the playoffs for only the second time in the last 20 years. So there is no way that Josh McDaniels could blow up this team and especially replace their beloved franchise quarterback without pissing everybody off. And Mark Davis is the type of guy to be hands off. He let Reggie McKenzie do whatever he wants. He let John Gruden do whatever he wants. And according to GM Dave Ziegler, he is very hands off.
Well, I think that, the one thing about Mark that's is a real positive about Mark is Mark lets you do your job. Mark, I wouldn't say there's a directive from Mark.
And in 2018, he allowed John Gruden to tank, trading away all their star players and having a lot of cheap one-year veterans. This helped them get the number 4 overall pick in the draft, but that led to Clelin Ferrell. So why would Mark Davis not allow Josh McDaniels to rebuild and remake the team in his own image? Why would Mark Davis be opposed to Josh McDaniels intentionally tanking for his own QB? But the big question is, why would the Raiders go out and trade for superstar Davante Adams if they were planning on rebuilding all along? And how could a highly sought after head coaching candidate with multiple Super Bowl rings give up some of the most unprecedented losses in not only Raiders but NFL history? And now we've seen Derek Carr breaking down at press conferences as the Raiders sit at 2-7.
It's hard knowing what some guys are doing, like I said, just to practice what they're putting in their body just to sleep at night, like just so we could be there for each other. And I wish everybody in that room felt the same way about this place. And as a leader, that pisses me off, if I'm being honest.
And it's not clear exactly who these people are. And a week prior to that, he mentioned that there were some problems going on in the building and he needed to have a man-to-man conversation behind closed doors.
17-point lead this year. Any similar sense or any similar feeling that you can?
There's a lot I want to say, but if I'm honest, I don't need to say it here. When there's things that will be said, there are things that need to be addressed. I feel like I've been in this situation a lot where new coaches or this or that, and you have to teach the new guys, like, this is how we do it, and this is the mentality, and this is and that gets tiring, but at the same time it's my job. But there's things in-house that we'll talk about, and man-to-man and all that kind of stuff that could be addressed.
Davante Adams echoes similar sentiment.
I mean, we're gonna keep what was said in-house. Wasn't nothing crazy, but I mean, just we had a conversation we have as a team, and that's kind of that. I don't know.
But Josh McDaniels says he has no idea what Derek Carr is talking about.
I think you'd have to ask him, more specifically, what he was or wasn't referring to. I've talked to Derek. I mean, I can't speak to what he was referring to specifically.
Derek Carr knows that Josh McDaniels has job security with Mark Davis. And why is it that while Derek Carr praises the coaches and says he loves them,
I love Josh, love the car, love our coaches,
his family is on the internet criticizing Josh McDaniels? Could it be that Derek Carr is saying something about the coaching staff and the fact that maybe they're not trying their best to win games this year because they want to look towards the future? We have been covering this story from the start. To get groundbreaking Raiders content, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next video. Josh McDaniels, when he was the head coach of the Denver Broncos, said that he could turn a high school QB into an all-pro. And now he has a 2023 draft class ahead of him with tons of QB talent and a QB free agent class that is likely to feature Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo, who he had previously worked with in New England. This is the story story about how the plan all along from the get-go could have been for Josh McDaniels to rebuild this team and grab his new quarterback in 2023 to completely remake this team in his own image. But he knew he could not do this the same way he did it last time, and this time he went about it differently. When Josh McDaniels was hired in January 2022, Mark Davis said that this is not a rebuild and this is just building on what was already established.
We've got some great players in this organization right now. I believe there's a great culture in this organization right now, which is what they will find. They haven't seen that as much yet because they haven't seen all the players together. Now we're just moving to the next level, and that it's not a rebuild, it's not a reload, it's just taking this to the next level and getting to that Super Bowl and winning some championships.
However, he also said what he liked a lot about Josh McDaniels is what he did with quarterbacks who aren't the greatest talent. What he did with Matt Castle, what he did with Mac Jones, a rookie quarterback.
I've seen them do it with Tom Brady, of course, the greatest of all time. Then I saw it with Matt Castle. I saw him be able to win with him and make Matt Castle the hottest free agent commodity in the market. Then I saw him do it this year with a rookie quarterback.
Couple this with the fact that Derek Carr said nothing after Josh McDaniels was hired for several weeks. Even players like Jonathan Abram, who were eventually released in the 2022 season, retweeted the Raiders' post that they hired Josh McDaniels, but Derek Carr did not even do that. And this is because Derek Carr was on a one-year contract with no guarantees, and any smart person knows that when a new coach comes in with a multi-year contract, if the whole entire coaching staff is going to change, the players are usually going to change with it. Eventually, Carr would tell the media that him and Josh McDaniels have talked and that he wants to sign a new contract with the Raiders, but there's also some players that he wants to play with. And then out of nowhere, Davante Adams was traded to the Las Vegas Raiders in a shocking blockbuster move. And what was even crazy is Davante Adams, despite the fact that he had some talks with both the Packers front office and the Raiders, he did not know if the deal would actually go through, and he was completely shocked to see it happen and wasn't even told that it happened.
Because I didn't even get told about it yet. So I'm like, what is going on? So honestly, because of the way it happened, the way it went down, it made me question if it was valid or not. So I had to figure out what's going on. I had to call my agent right away, and he said, well, I guess you're a Raider, huh? I'm like, so you didn't know about this either? But I mean, some slippery stuff happened with that, I think.
And so despite the fact that there was no new contract with Derek Carr, it looked like the front office was committing to Derek Carr by going out and getting his former college teammate Davante Adams. It would not be until after the 2022 draft when Derek Carr would get his contract extension. But the most odd thing about this extension is there is a 1 year out in the contract, meaning on February 15th, if the Raiders want to, they could release Derek Carr and lose almost no dead money. And Dave Ziegler, the GM of the Raiders, even tried to spin this and deny that it's only a 1 year contract and claim it's a multi-year deal.
And so, how the contract was built and all those, different types of things, people can look into all those things and, create different storylines and different headings to look into. The extension was longer than 1 year, and it was longer than 1 year for a reason. So
we all know several veteran quarterbacks who get multi-year deals do not have an out like that. And so the question was, why would Derek Carr, who was a hot commodity in the offseason, the Colts were willing to go YOLO and trade a bag for Derek Carr, why would he sign this type of contract in which this team could easily move on from him? Why would he not fight for more guarantees? And people try to spin this as a team-friendly deal, but the only thing team-friendly about it is the 1 year out. Other than that, Derek Carr next year will be making $35 million against the cap, and the year after $42 million. How could Derek Carr possibly deny this deal even if it has no guarantees beyond this year? Would Derek Carr really risk the chance of not reuniting and playing with Davante Adams? It was almost as if the Davante Adams move pressured Derek Carr and put him in a corner where he had to take this risky deal and gamble on himself for this year. Like we said earlier, Derek Carr won over the hearts of the fan base last year. And even right now, a vast majority of the fans know he's a great quarterback and put most of these losses on the complete mismanagement of Josh McDaniels. If Josh McDaniels would have immediately blown up the roster and gotten rid of Derek Carr, he would have lost the support from the fan base. And Davante Adams and Derek Carr is a great way to build hype and convince a lot of people to spend money for this year. And so why not have a season with Davante Adams and Derek Carr? And if Derek Carr can't get it done and can't ultimately get wins at the end of the day, then you could pin it all on Derek Carr and say, hey, we gave him Davante Adams, we gave him Darren Waller, we gave him Hunter Renfrow, and he still can't get it done. But a lot of these losses have left fans scratching their head and pointing the finger at Josh McDaniels, despite the fact that Mark Davis denies that Josh McDaniels is performing poorly. McDaniels is the first Raiders coach to blow a 20-point lead, and Josh McDaniels is also the first Raiders coach to blow 3 17-point leads, and the first Raiders coach to lose to a coach, Jeff Saturday, who has never coached in the college or the pros. And when the Raiders were shut out against the New Orleans Saints and Dennis Allen, that was actually the first time the Raiders have been shut out since 2014. So Josh McDaniels is losing close games, one possession games, when the Raiders were able to do that last year. And with some of the decisions that he makes during the game, it is almost like when the Raiders get a lead, he allows the other team to come back. And Derek Carr, in press conference after press conference, keeps saying he is trying to do exactly what Josh McDaniels wants.
You know, knowing what he wants me to get to, I always want him to know, I want to go to exactly what he wants. You know, I want him to think, oh, that's exactly where I think the ball is going to go. I'm trying my best just to execute it exactly how he sees it. I truly believe in exactly what he says, like, hey, I'm going to tell you what to do, now let's go out there and let's do it, you know. But when it comes to the reads and all that kind of stuff, I'm just going to do my best ability what Josh wants me to do.
And multiple reporters for the Raiders have acknowledged that Derek Carr has less freedom in Josh McDaniels' system and that his options are pretty cut and dried. Derek Carr has even said that he knows where the ball is going before it is snapped. And there is a myth out there that the Raiders might not have great players. When this team went to the playoffs last year, they have 3 players in the Pro Bowl, 5 players in the top 100, and that includes Derek Carr. The only thing that's really changed for the Raiders is Josh McDaniels and him controlling what Derek Carr can do with his options when passing the football. And Derek Carr is an emotional guy, but we have never seen him break down like this in a press conference. Perhaps after losing to Jeff Saturday and the Colts, it has finally dawned on him that perhaps the guys who are not suiting up on the field, who are not doing crazy things to their bodies just to participate in the game, are not fully bought in on this season and are not even trying to have too much success this season. We hear all the time about Josh McDaniels' success throughout his career, and if he is so successful, then why are the Raiders losing close one-possession games, and why are the Raiders failing despite getting 17, sometimes 20 points ahead of their opponents? If he is such a genius, it only makes sense that he is doing this deliberately, because if he was really so talented, he would be able to prevent this year. Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller also signed some contracts, and it made it seem like the Raiders are going all in with Derek Carr and some of his favorite weapons. But when you look at both of these contracts, the Raiders could move on with losing almost no dead money from both Waller and Renfrow after next season. And they can move on from Derek Carr after this season. All 3 of these players were under contract for this season anyways in 2022. So really the Waller and Renfrow deals are just 1-year extension. They would have been under contract anyways this year. And Derek Carr's contract is not really an extension at all, but just making this current season fully guaranteed. And when you look at the guarantees in Davante Adams' contract, it really was only a 3-year deal. This season's done. He's got 2 more years remaining locked in with the Raiders unless he demands a trade and waives his guarantees in order to get traded. The only players the Raiders are really locked into for the next 2 years are Chandler Jones, Max Crosby, and Davante Adams. And if the season ended today, the Raiders would have the number 2 overall pick in the draft in a QB-heavy draft class. Couple this with the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo and Tom Brady are likely to be free agents next year. So would it be at all surprising for Josh McDaniels to completely blow up this roster this next offseason, maybe get a bridge QB and a veteran that he already knows, and also draft a quarterback behind him to study simultaneously? Now, it is also possible that Derek Carr could continue to be a bridge QB for the Raiders next season. He would only have a $5.6 million dead cap hit in the 2023 season. So the Raiders could draft a QB and use Derek Carr as a mentor / bridge QB. But based on some of these extensions to some of his friends and also the signing of Davante Adams, doesn't seem like Derek Carr intended to be some type of mentor bridge QB. And Davante Adams specifically left Green Bay because he thought Aaron Rodgers could retire at any moment. He didn't want to play with some young QB just learning it like Jordan Love. But if Josh McDaniels moves on from Derek Carr, looks like he's pressuring Davante Adams to play with a young QB anyways. What is so odd is that the Raiders owner and the Raiders staff refuses to blame blame the coaching. You got GM Ziegler blaming execution.
I think he's had a good plan every week. We have to execute the plan. I think that's been something that the team would tell you that we haven't been very consistent on. We haven't had 11 guys execute consistently enough.
All blame is at the players. That's what the Raiders media is pushing. That's what the Raiders friends and NFL media are pushing. But no one blames Josh McDaniels when the majority of the fans recognize and acknowledge that he is the problem. So it's clear that the Raiders will need a scapegoat for this season, and it seems like Derek Carr could be that guy, and perhaps him breaking down is him recognizing that he just might be that guy. While talking about this issue in the building, in the locker room, Derek Carr says he loves the coaches. But Derek Carr knows if he wants to be a Raider, he is stuck with that coaching staff because Mark Davis already signed the check. So that's why it's odd to see his family, his nephew at Harvester Sports, criticize the coaching staff, even say that the coaches should be fired, while Derek pours his heart out at these press conferences. So perhaps Derek Carr cannot say exactly what he means, and maybe his family is trying to say it for him. We hope this is not true. We are rooting for Derek Carr, and we hope he continues to be the quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders because he has performed well in his career, despite the fact that this has been a terrible organization. So hopefully, if Josh McDaniels does decide to draft a QB, hopefully Derek Carr could be the bridge QB and the mentor, maybe somebody to compete head to head with whoever this new guy is. All in all, Mark Davis has made it clear that he is sticking with Josh McDaniels and he chooses him over everybody in the Raiders organization. Perhaps the fact that Mark Davis is not that wealthy of an owner means he couldn't buy out the rest of Josh McDaniels' 4-year contract anyways, so Mark is kind of stuck with the dude. Perhaps throughout the rest of this season, we will see even more evidence by Josh McDaniels and his decision making that he is intentionally tanking and losing games. And if you support Derek Carr more than you support Josh McDaniels, type DC greater than McD in the comments below. We hope Derek Carr is not going to be done dirty, but all signs are pointing to yes. We will closely monitor this situation and everything happening with the Las Vegas Raiders. Make sure you like this video if you have not already and subscribe to this channel for more Raiders content. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and we hope you have a good one.